Okay, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. So today I've got Liz with me, and the first thing I think we've got to kind of voice is the fact we're running a little bit late, but that's just life. So Liz got stuck in
my
traffic.
fault. Apologies, everybody. I got stuck in Liverpool City, and there was lots of roadworks being done, and I don't know the area very well, so I felt like I was driving around in circles and circles. So apologies.
No apologies needed. We all go through this. And this is the reason we like to do, or I like to do this stuff live, because I think it just gives a real feeling as to we're not trying to sugarcoat stuff. It's just the way it is. And we all go through this. So welcome, Liz. And now Liz has got an amazing CV. If you ever go and take a look at her CV on LinkedIn, you kind of go, oh, it goes over so many years and you've done such a variety of jobs. I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself, because to me this interview is special. I think we've got to help more people get into tech, but also kind of flip in and from other careers, other areas of business. And that's why I'm excited to dive into yours a little bit, but I'll let you introduce yourself as to what you've done and how you ended up here.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. So I'm Liz Ashall-Payne, founding chief exec at Orcha. I do wear another few hats, so I'll just introduce those as well. So I also sit as vice chair on the Health and Social Care Council at Tech UK. I'm also an NHS England mentor for the Clinical Entrepreneur Programme, and I'm also an NHS Innovation Accelerator Fellow alumni. So I have a number of different hats. So where did it all start? So it started the same as everybody else, which is when you're about 15, 16, you get asked, what is it you want to be when you grow up? And it's a horrible question because you don't really know. And I started thinking, well, what is it I want to do? And my passion was always wanting to help people, which naturally took me into healthcare. Now, this was way before we had technology and smartphones or computers. So as you said, my CV is quite long. I've been around for quite a bit. So I started looking into healthcare roles and clinical roles, but I didn't want to be a doctor or a nurse because I'm actually quite squeamish. So I found this career called a speech and language therapist. And I thought, oh, I do enjoy chatting. So that could really work for me. So I went off, did my degree, and I was so excited on day one to start helping people. And so I went to my clinic. I was working with children at the time, and I saw 6 patients. And I felt really disappointed at the end of that day. And the reason I felt disappointed was because I'd only been able to see one patient at a time, and we had a huge volume of waiting list, and lots of people needed access to healthcare. And so I thought, well, how can I help more people? Because this isn't enough. And so that rapidly took me on to, I suppose, wanting to drive efficiencies and doing things differently. So we did that. We transformed care pathways, and we had some amazing results. So, for example, in speech therapy, within about a 3 to 6 month period, we reduced waiting lists from 22 months to 3 months. And we all started seeing many more patients. And it was just transformational. And then I got the role of going around basically any service you can think of in health or care. I have been in, either managed it and redesigned it, or gone in and done a quality improvement review. And it's great. I mean, we really drove some amazing efficiencies. But you do get to a point where there's only so fast that you can run, and before you need to do things differently. And at that point in my career, computers started to land on clinicians' desks, the electronic health record, and of course the smartphone. And with the smartphone came the opportunity that digital health presented. And I thought, this is it. This is the answer. Because if we can deploy a digital health technology to people, millions of people can have access to it without it having an impact on each other. But then I found the frustration that people weren't adopting these technologies. Fast forward another few years, and I'm really obsessed with this problem now, and there's about 165,000 technologies. And so I started to think, well, how can we do things better? And by now I'd left the NHS, and I was still working with the NHS, but as an independent consultant, but I was also working internationally. And it was the same, irrelevant of which country I was in. And so I started to get obsessed with this problem. Had a chat with a chap who had some technologies, and he said, I think you need to write a business plan. I wrote a business plan. It was going to be sent off to some investors. I got a phone call from an investor, a chap called Sir Terry Leahy, who had a bit of a Dragon's Den style conversation with me, and he said, yeah, I'll invest in this idea, it sounds brilliant. And so that was the start of my business career in a way. I had my own consultancy, but it's very different. And that was 7 years ago. And now Orcha are the leading organisation for evaluating digital health, but also more importantly, distributing it in a safe way through health and care professionals.
I just love listening to you because you're so passionate about what you do. It's just like, it's inspiring, it's fun, it's exciting. And, this is what I'm always trying to encourage people to go off and find, that passion. But actually, interesting with you, your kind of goal, what you wanted to achieve when you were 16, hasn't really changed.
It's what gets me up right now. I know that right now, doing the job I'm doing with Orcha, I'm impacting and helping more lives than I would have ever been able to achieve as a clinician, a service manager, or a health system leader. And that is what drives me every day.
So what is it what and who do you think has supported you most in your career as you've kind of been going through all these different phases and all these different probably challenges that have come up?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably there's been so many people to mention. I think that the thing that I've always been really very good at is being honest with myself. And being honest with yourself is quite hard because that means being honest about what you're good at, but also being honest with yourself about what maybe you've got gaps in, and also being honest about where do you want to fill gaps and where do you not want to fill gaps. And so I've always been fortunate in that I'm able to see my strengths and my weaknesses very easily. And I'm also okay with not being great at everything. I don't want to be great at everything. Nobody's great at everything. So what I've always wanted to be is very collaborative with people who are different to me and really value differences. And so a really good example of this is my co-founder at Orcha. So lots of people know me as being the chief exec at Orcha, but not very many people know my co-founder, who's Tim Andrews. And Tim is the absolute polar opposite to me. We're both very passionate about helping people. We both have the same core values, but his background is legal and commercial. And so he's got a completely different set of skills and a different perspective, which I really, really value. And thankfully, he really values my different perspective. And I think that's probably been the real beauty of Orcha. And when we've grown Orcha out, we always look at where our collective gaps now as 135 people, where are our gaps and where do we need to fill those gaps, and then value the differences that people bring. And so on my journey of being inspired by other people, I'm always inspired by people who have a different journey, people who've done things differently to me, people who are amazing at things that I can't be amazing at. And that I suppose, and then it's that learning side, being interested in learning more about yourself and being okay with who you are.
Interesting. You say that you two have very similar values, and you've basically just been talking about them then in terms of, learning, curiosity, appreciation, collaboration, and kind of respecting different types of people for the value that they bring to the business. So, what else is important to you as a leader in tech?
So, there's so many things that are important. So I think that for me as a leader, resilience is a big thing that I've had to really stop and think about, because it's not easy. It's a new market, it's a new area. It's fast changing. There's lots of dynamics at play. Obviously, we've got economic challenges, which do actually have an influence on these things because health is political. And so I think, being really honest with yourself and understanding how you become resilient and how you get through some of those challenging times is really important. I'm a visual person. So, I visualize the journey that I go on as a leader as being like a river. And every so often there's a waterfall, and that's turbulence. But after it, if you can ride your way through that turbulence, the water's deeper and it will be calm again. But I also recognise that I need to do things to help me get through that turbulent time. So my thing is I walk. I was laughing the other day with my co-founder Tim, saying I feel like I'm Forrest Gump, but rather than running, I just walk and walk and walk and walk, and I just never stop walking. And then for me, it's spending time with my family that's really refreshing. So I think as a leader, to get you through some of those challenging times, it's thinking through, well, what is it that will help me, and also the recognition that you will fall over. And so success isn't about never falling over, it's about keep getting up. And I think that there's something about your paradigm in that as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, I like that, because it's like, that was kind of one of the questions I was asked. What does success actually mean? You're like, well, it's the fact that you keep getting up, that you keep trying, that you don't give up, even though kind of obstacles are appearing in your way.
Yeah, and that's life, isn't it? And I suppose success is about how you deal with those challenges, not about where you get to in the end. I mean, having said all of that, we do have an end goal, which is we want every digital health technology choice to be made with Orcha, because what that means is it's founded on quality and safety and clinical validity, which means we can help more people. And so that is a big ambition, and we also want to become sustainable enough to be able to help parts of the world that otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to what we do. And so some of those things are about measures of success, which isn't necessarily a destination but much more mission driven.
Yeah, taking people on that journey to explain to them actually what the vision is, where you can get to, and actually how exciting, what the bigger impact of that is in the broader world, not just in the UK or in the potentially European countries.
Yeah.
So one things, like, how has your definition of success kind of changed over the years?
I mean, I wouldn't say it has actually. It's quite interesting. So I was saying the other day, in fact, I need to remember to send them this. I was saying to our new intake of new starters that if you read the business case that I wrote all those years ago, we've actually done everything that I said I wanted us to do. So it was an amazing, but I think that I don't feel like we've finished. We've got so much more to do. That was the plan, to achieve that. The plan is always to help to improve lives through digital health, and more broader than that, achieve a sustainable healthcare system for everybody, because digital is the only game in town to achieve that. And so my mission is to do that on a global scale. And, we're already working in 12 countries. We're looking to expand further. So, some people have kindly said, oh, you must feel like you've already achieved so much success. And I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah. No, this is quite fun, because it's almost as though the more you achieve, the bigger the goal gets. You can see that next level, you can see the next opportunity. And like you said, you're still living into what you committed to all those years ago, in terms of where you want to go with this. And technology is definitely as I see it, the leverage that can create more sustainable future for life on Earth, because all of the solutions we've got around us today will contain technology in one form or another, and what you're doing is creating that as you go. So what is it you would say that you're most proud of achieving out of all of this?
There's a couple of moments that I can reflect on. So one is when somebody came up to me in a conference and said, have you heard about this thing called Orcha? And I thought, brilliant, I love that. And then the other thing is actually seeing the team grow and thrive in Orcha, and seeing other people really want to make your vision come to life. That is really, really humbling. And I love it when I see things that Orcha are doing that I haven't touched, because that then means it's becoming sustainable and scalable. And so, I'd say that those are two of my most proud areas.
I love that. Yeah. Now, you're talking about obviously making the culture, as you say, sustainable, that people are just kind of creating parts of it on their own without you being involved. But you have you talk quite openly about stuff, like you were saying, I think earlier, was about honesty, and you it's really important for you to be honest. But you talk quite courageously as well, in terms of you're not scared to have a difficult conversation. So what's it take for you to be able to speak courageously?
Do you know, I've reflected on this with a number of people. I think it's really interesting. So I see all people as completely equal. And so I've never been worried about talking to somebody who in an autocratic environment would be seen as being significantly more, further up the tree than me. I've always, and genuinely I mean this, always treated everybody equally, irrelevant of their role, how much money they've got. It's like, for me, my value base is very much about who you are is what you're worth, not how much money you've got or the job title or where you sit in a hierarchy. And I don't know why I've always had that. I wouldn't say that my family particularly have that feeling. So I don't know where, I genuinely don't, I'm not quite sure where that's come from, but it's like, that's my value inside. And so when I need to have a difficult conversation, I'm not nervous about having a conversation with somebody who might appear to be more important than me, if that makes sense. I'm more interested in why I'm doing something and why I'm having that conversation and what I'm trying to achieve by having that conversation. And so because my value base is so strong, and I have that conversation before with myself, before I maybe enter into a difficult conversation, I'm okay with it because it's about the outcome. And I think that's probably the clinician in me, which is it's all about the outcome, not the process. And I wouldn't say that I'm, that isn't to say that I would tread on people's toes or anything. I would always be respectful. But if we have to have a difficult conversation, I think what I want to do is get where we need to get to as fast as possible.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it uncovers opportunities, whereas if you avoid something, you're kind of moving away from that. So it's something I hear from you is you're setting intentions about what it is that you want to achieve. And that actually helps you to take that step in and say, actually, I'm doing it because this is, this is the intention of what I want to get out. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. So when, if this doesn't cause you kind of heartache, so to speak, when do you feel vulnerable?
I mean, I think the vulnerability is always there because, you're a mesh of human emotions. And so, of course, I feel vulnerable, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind feeling vulnerable, actually. That's part of who I am. It's good. So when do I feel vulnerable? When did I last feel vulnerable? I probably need to reflect a little bit more on that, actually. I suppose I am instinctively somebody who puts other people before me. And instinctively, if I see something that isn't going quite right as I would feel should happen, then that causes an emotional reaction, which makes me feel maybe vulnerable is the right word, because it's not necessarily a considered response, it's an emotional response. But as you said at the beginning, my CV is quite long, so I've had quite a journey of learning to be able to take a step back and think about that in the first instance. But I think as well, my paradigm is no regrets. Do what you can do in the best way you can for the right reasons. And so that vulnerability, I don't have any regrets. When people say, what have been your biggest failings? I say, I've never failed, I've always learned. And I genuinely feel like that. That's genuine. And so that vulnerability, I suppose if things are spiraling, if people get poorly in my family, that feels vulnerable because I can't do anything about that necessarily. It's probably those kind of things that are way outside of my scope of influence or control.
Yeah, totally.
Good question.
So, what are the types of things that kind of keep you awake at night? Being obviously the CEO of a company comes with a certain level of responsibility. So, what are the things that sometimes still kind of go through your head?
So it's so funny, and my husband would be able to vouch for this. I'm asleep before my head hits the pillow. And I think that again that comes down to how I live my life and how I work. I always try and do the right thing, and I suppose if ever I felt that I didn't do the right thing, that would keep me awake. But I would say that 99.9% of the time I'm asleep, and I sleep very soundly, not least because I'm shattered. But I'd say, from a worry point of view, I would say that it's the thing that worries me the most is the decision making. Am I making the right decision at the right time?
Yeah.
And that's a crystal ball question, really. Yeah. And so that's when I go back to my core values of trying to do the right thing and do it well. And if I can do that, then I know I've tried my best and I've made the right decision for the right reason. That is probably the only thing that if I've got a decision to make and I'm not sure whether I'm making the right decision at the right time, that can sometimes churn around, but not for very long.
Yeah, I love the way that you go back to your values all the time. You're very values kind of focused, and you know that if you're living by your values, you're showing up with your values, then actually you can't go too far wrong and have, this feeling like something's just not quite right. Yeah, so I love that.
And I think that has been inside me for always, which probably comes back to some of the questions you were asking before about what makes you to feel courageous. It's if I'm living by my values, then it's a no-brainer. I'm doing it.
So I guess what would be the one thing you wish someone had told you before you maybe started out on this journey with Orcha?
So I think, if I'm honest, I really value the naivety I had. So I had a massive amount of naivety about what it was going to be like on this journey. And the best analogy I can give you is the first time I had a baby versus the second time. I was less worried about giving birth the first time than I was the second time because I had that level of naivety. And so would I have wanted anybody to have told me any truths at that point? I'm not sure, if truth be told. I think the only thing I do reflect back on is it took me to my middle 30s to accept who I was and to feel comfortable to just be me and not feel that I had to act like somebody I looked up to. And I think if I could just go back and give myself the belief that it was okay to just be me, I would have loved to have known that sooner.
Yeah, the permission to just be yourself. Yeah, I think if we could instill that in the next generation, that would be an amazing change.
Well, it's really interesting because I've got 2 children. My youngest is 9. And the thing I see in him, which is just so admirable, is he is just himself in every way possible. Bless him, he's just decided he's going to be a Buddhist. He was researching different religions. And he's really into crystals and meditation, and he's just ruthlessly himself at 9. And I think, wow, what a gift.
Totally. Totally. You could teach us a thing or two. This is where we get to learn from the next generation, yeah?
Exactly, yeah.
I love this. So, is there anything I should have asked you that will help others get the most out of your story? And
I think the only thing I'd say is, when we're talking about women in tech, you can hear my story. I didn't start with technology in mind. My passion was around helping people. And as you've said on, during our conversation, technology is a part of every bit of our lives, every bit of everything that we do, retail, banking, shopping, anything that you can think of, technology is a part of it. And you don't have to be a coder or a developer or technology expert to be interested in looking into how technology can support the problem you're interested in or the solution that you're trying to create, and just surround yourself with amazing people who are.
Thank you so much for sharing today. It's been great to listen to you. I always kind of admired your honesty when we first met and when we were talking. And I just think it's so important that we share this part of, you don't have to be anything specific. You just have to be you.
Exactly.
And I love that. Thank you so much, Liz. And it was lovely speaking to you.
Me. And sorry I was late again.
Don't worry. And we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely.
Look after yourself.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.